Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Cracking the Code, episode 26. Wow, the numbers keep going up. If only I can remember when I was 26-year-old. I think those were post-college days. I don't know, something like that. But we're excited to have you back here with us. And we're going to have some great conversation today. Today, we're going to test out some new things in the conversation. So, a new segment that hopefully will help you get to know those on the show a little bit better and learn more about them as a person and not just some of the challenges they face in protecting patient data within the cloud. So I'm excited again. John Deering, I head up marketing here at Clear Data. And I am joined by our persistent and knowledgeable host, Chris Bowen, who is just an expert in all things cybersecurity, compliance, healthcare, et cetera, as well as the effervescent Nico Severino, who is smooth in the tongue. Don't let him fool you. Dude, what do they call that? The silver tongue? There might
I
be a
mean,
little bit of that.
effervescent. Wow,
I don't
that's
know. Effervescent, silver
reminds me of
tongue, silver
Alka-Seltzer or
hair.
something, right?
I don't know. Well, I'm trying to come up with nice things to say about the Nico, as you can't, if you can't tell. But no, Nico's great. He's my partner in crime over here, and I love working with him. Not to mention when I hear him talk about, and we'll get. Hopefully, he doesn't pick this category later, but talk about food. I mean, talk about just like being on a call like this and your mouth starting to salivate. But we know that that's not why you're here, first and foremost. But hopefully, at the end, you might get some good recipes from him. Um, today I wanted to start out, gentlemen, talking a little bit about the health conference that was last week. It was in Las Vegas. Tens of thousands of people in the healthcare industry all came together. With things like AI coming into the market, I'm sure some of the tone changed year over year, and there were a lot of great themes. So I thought we'd start out talking a little bit about that and just kind of find out, your all's takes on what you heard about the show, what went on there, your experiences, the team's experiences, things like that. Chris, I know you did a session to kick it off with Med City News, which I posted something on LinkedIn about. I thought it was really funny because it was your fellow panelist gave a great little tidbit in some of the media coverage about the one word and the
The
thing.
one word. Yeah.
Yeah, the one word,
Yeah.
which
The one word
sometimes might have a little bit of a
that got
connotation.
90% of the media play. That one
Yeah,
word.
the
Yeah.
one word. Well,
Yeah.
hey, simple,
Yeah.
right? It's catchy. Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences there. Like, what was? Maybe you can clarify a little bit about that one word, so we're not going in the wrong direction with what that
Oh
means.
no, it was a fine word. It's the safe word, the deep fake safe word that caught everybody's attention. We've talked about that in the past. It was a fun event. Late Las Vegas. Definitely was Las Vegas. It was full of great people. They had a hallway with all the speakers and, caricatures, cut out caricatures, which were kind of cool. And, you had folks from all kinds of walks of life. You had speakers like Chelsea Clinton, the woman from 23 and Me, which, interesting, for her discussions around the board of directors resigning, from that. Lenny Kravitz was a speaker as well. I mean, he was also performing down the hall, so that was kind of convenient. That was kind of cool. My own senator, Kirsten Sinema, was a speaker. I did not run into her, but it was fun. It was a fun time to get there. We had a booth there. We talked to a lot of folks. Some of our board members came by and we said hello. But by and large, everybody was upbeat. It was a very well run event. There were lots of folks that were talking about some of the new innovations. It was a really great show.
What would you say? What was the highlight for you? What did you like most about it?
One of the favorite parts of the show was the founders, the innovators, the first time entrants to the show. And I really loved going into talking to these folks who have a problem that they're trying to solve in healthcare and having the guts to start a company and show up at the health conference with just one little table. and trying to make it happen. I remember those days as the founder of ClearData. I remember going to HIMSS and having just one little table and hoping that we could make it. So I huge respect for some of those innovators.
Yeah, as a person who's been in marketing almost his entire career, I have a love-hate relationship with those shows and showing up to them and what I hear there's so much aspiration and so much potential, and then after you've done like 10 of these things, you kind of get ground down a little bit. So and you realize, okay, there's some nuance to how we do this stuff and how you approach those. Nico, I was wondering kind of, your team was there kind of helping support Chris and the rest of the company and all this stuff. Um, what were you hearing from the team about it, both kind of leading up to it and then, I know we're only a couple days out of it, but you're getting the rumblings of this, that, and the other. What are you hearing about there from the team and what were the highlights that they shared with you?
Look, first of all, thank you for having me. This is great. It's a very, very, very nice to be here. AI and connected health, I heard were the dominant themes. I also heard the quality of the conversations were very high. So that was interesting to hear. Going into these big events is always a delicate balance between how many people you can talk to and how deep you can go in conversation and how useful those conversations are for you to expand your perspective, but also follow through afterwards. So that was interesting to hear. And three things that everybody consistently mention. A lot of focus around connected devices, remote patient monitoring, and smart hospitals, like all data-driven initiatives with the goal of driving patient outcomes. So a lot of conversation around that, a lot of buzz, of course. AI has been everywhere, but very, very interesting event for what I hear.
So
I'll add one thing to your point there, Nico. We talk about smart hospitals. I just submitted a an article to Forbes, and it talks about the efficiency of the physicians, the experience, and we're still not there. And I'll just throw this issue out there. We're still not there. When you go, for example, to get an MRI on your hand, sometimes they'll make the order for the left hand instead of the right hand. So medical mistakes, medical errors are still very prone to happen, very, very prevalent. I would also say that some of the efficiency in terms of, certain folks within the health system are following a checklist. And if something goes outside of that checklist, then they start all over again. So there's tremendous inefficiencies in some areas of these hospital systems that we got to continue to work on it from a healthcare perspective. Not us per se, we have our own work to do on protecting the data, but if I am a customer, what is my experience? What should that be, right?
didn't they used to solve that the left wrist versus the right wrist? If I recall, the means was a Sharpie. Put an X on the hand.
Like the astronaut pen, John. How do we make this pen right in space? I don't know. The US made a big pen that's millions and millions of dollars. The Russians used a pencil.
It writes upside down, right? There was a Seinfeld episode
Yeah,
about that, I
just use
think,
the
if I
pencil.
remember.
Exactly.
So, coming out of the show, kind of thinking about what um, you know, compliance, cybersecurity professionals in the healthcare space are thinking about, right? Because, as I've seen in some data, especially on the IT side of the house, cybersecurity is one of the top areas of investment in healthcare and outside of healthcare as well in the up and coming year. And so they're continuing to put more dollars into this. What are you hearing kind of in terms of the trends of where they're thinking about these dollars should go, and why do you think that is?
What are your thoughts, Nico?
Data breaches, unauthorized access, really top of mind for everybody beyond the CISO office. HIPAA, GDPR, this type regulation type compliance issues, they're most definitely in the minds of the CISO. So, company, whether it's a less sexy topic sometimes to discuss, but definitely top of mind for them, along with data sovereignty for those companies operating across states and internationally. And then you have other, there's another layer of things that they are also talking about, which are, making sure that you have incident response readiness and make sure that your third party risk management is at bay. Those things are definitely leading the conversation. And remember, the CISOs are not only thinking about storing data securely, but also be able to retrieve that data in protected data in case of breach in a secure manner. So those are, a multitude of topics that then open up an array of conversations around those. But again, data breaches, unauthorized access, keeping up with regulations, data sovereignty, those are the ones probably top of mind for what I've seen.
You know what? You mentioned states. New York just passed its new cybersecurity law, its new regulation. It's strikingly similar to HIPAA. We've got a couple of nuances there. If you think about the definition of what is protected, no longer, at least in New York, no longer is it going to be just PHI. It's now sensitive information.
Correct.
So that opens up the aperture, if you will, on what needs to be protected. And so if I'm a CISO in New York, I'm thinking, oh, great, now I've got a whole bunch more data that I've got to think about, and I've got to be able to protect that as well. In addition, you've got this new regulation has a 72-hour breach reporting requirement, just like GDPR, versus the 60 days from a HIPAA perspective, from HHS perspective. Do you think, Nico, you're traveling all over the country talking to customers, do you think that some of the elements of that law might bleed over into some other states?
Yeah, for sure. That for sure. There's you only need one to lead the charge, and then this is going to start proliferating. Look, data is a crown jewel of the healthcare organizations, and you can limit your scope to be within or outside certain limits. So this is going to definitely change the conversation and provide another layer of how do you take a look at and how do you engage in protecting this data in a more proactive way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure.
I'm really curious, like, and I agree with it as well, right? We take a look at, we go all the way back to canned spam, right, in the US, and we're like, woo, we've got all these regulations to prevent, spam email. Did that do anything? Has that stopped any of it? I unsubscribe from stuff all this time and they still send me emails and nobody's doing anything about it. I think GDPR was the first regulation that really put teeth against that stuff. And now you see like CCPA, and I forget the one in Virginia, like even Canada rolled out Castle. And I know we're talking a little lower level here than patient data, right? But they even walked that back a little on the B2B side of the house. But, this type of organic, if you will, growth or adoption, or just everybody raising the bar on this it's got to make the job just orders of magnitude difficult every time something like this happens. So, as you see this rolling out, Chris, in this expansion happening, how is that affecting CISOs? How is that changing the way that they're thinking? Or, I read a report recently that talked about their job satisfaction was fairly low. How does this keep a CISO energized to keep going and keep fighting the battle?
It's just one more thing, John. It's just one more thing. So again, it's data. We've got to protect it, but now we have to just open the aperture to the sensitive data as well. Which, in fairness, let's think about that for a second. Why on earth do we now have to carve out let's also protect the sensitive data as well? That should have been happening for the last 20 years. Let's just be honest about it. If the health system is saying, hey, we'll protect this little part of the patient record, that's great. But all this other metadata that's going to tell you the story of John throughout his continuum of care, it's not PHI per se. Hey, maybe you just went and you went shopping at a place that had tobacco in it, and hey, maybe your insurance company picked up your credit card transaction of you buying a pipe or something. Whatever it is, now you've got all this metadata about you that should have been protected all along. And so if we think about healthcare, there's so many organizations that think specifically about the patient data. The patient data is everywhere, as you know. It's in your Fitbit. It's in your, your Withings scale when you jump on it. Where does that data go? All of that data needs to be protected. In fact, non-specific health data has been wrapped into some of the regulations that say you have to protect that too. You can't just, you know, carve out these app data elements and pretend that they're just normal to set of data. It's still medical data. It's still healthcare data.
That's an interesting view to the future of where all of this is going, right?
Oh, it's already there. It's already there, Joe.
We're or maybe the protection of this data, not that the data is
Yes, yes,
but
definitely.
the protection
We
of the
need to do a
data.
better job on that for sure.
Nico, in your eyes, when you're talking to protectors of the data out there, and specifically in healthcare, right? Um, what do you hear? What's keeping them up at night? Like, what are the things that, there's a broad remit of everything in this future we're talking about of protecting all of the data, but what are the things keeping them up at night? And what are they saying, wow, I'm really thinking about this, and this is where I need help.
Um, there are a couple of things that are, interestingly enough, they're not new things, right? So, there's a lot we hear about, I am constantly trying to figure out where do I have the weak control deploy that might open a door for unauthorized access that I didn't know about. So identity and access management is a big thing that's in their minds, especially because through that, then you can get and you can fall victim of other things. Definitely ransomware is also definitely top of mind these days, and targeted attacks are big, right? So um, all of this go at the core of the worst nightmare of the protectors of the cloud, and really, the how they handle APTs and how do they handle lateral movement by attackers. Those are the next things that are really top of mind for them.
Yeah, I'll just say APTs for the audience is advanced persistent threats.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
FYI.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love TLAs myself. My favorite one is pass me the CRDs, the Cool Ranch Doritos, if you will.
BTW, ABC, BVD, the East Coast family. Yeah, we never skip a beat. So Nico, when that's coming across, what do you think are and Chris, maybe you jump in on this too. What are the different views that they look at to solve these types of challenges for their business? And what are the factors they should really be thinking about between some of those options that help them kind of find out what's right for them?
Um, we talked about the role of compliance earlier, and when you think about it, that gives you a framework to make sure that you're doing things the right way, and then you have a consistent way of checking this again and again. It's not for regulation's sake, for the most part, I'll
Yeah.
say. Um, but one can only dream, right, Chris?
Exactly.
But having this systematic approach in layers, making sure that you are deploying controls that really serve the business, but also are solving for the problem that you're trying to solve. It doesn't really help anybody solve any problem if you're going to keep the data so secure that nobody's going to be able to that data safely or retrieve it safely. So then you overcorrect and then you go to the other end. So making sure that you are deploying security in layers, that you're keeping your data compliant, that compliance is something that you have control over time, and as that data evolves. Think about data in the cloud in the time of generative AI, how that data transform, what it transforms into, how compliant it will become after it transforms, how much drift you can get, and what that drift in compliance could do to your security posture. Those are some of the things that our customers are thinking about to try to resolve and get ahead of the problem. Rick, Chris, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts in
Oh,
here.
I concur. Doctor, I concur.
You
Yes.
concur. No debate.
Should have concurred. I concur.
Nico
All right.
sticks to the landing. In terms of how they try to solve all of that, because there's a lot there, right? And so, they can try to do it themselves. They can
Yes.
just bring in like one-off projects. They could have, they could fully outsource it. Like, are you hearing any trends in what they're thinking about or in what's driving, I guess, what's driving their thinking?
I mean, I'm hearing trends where CISOs will have a bunch of vulnerabilities in an on-premises situation and say, hey, how do I get this out of here into a more pristine environment? I'm hearing of organizations that have had a data breach that are realizing they have way more applications than they should. They've just allowed these applications to bloom over time, blossom, if you will, maybe like a weed, but thousands and thousands and thousands of applications in certain hospital systems that they're not always being patched, and most of them are not. And we also see a huge issue with some of the end of life stuff, the end of life software, the servers that are sitting there with no ability to be patched anymore. It's a scary thing. So tech debt is another real issue that I'm seeing pop up.
There's two things that are definitely complementary to what Chris mentioned. We're seeing a lot of concern, especially when you talk to the CISOs that are trying to deal with either vulnerability or massive application migrations into the cloud or relocation. It's around avoiding misconfiguration in the cloud. That's another big topic and the consequences that could bring. And this is, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, "Well, it's all about knowing what to configure and what not to configure." Well, it's not that simple. And if only, right, Chris? If only were that simple.
Hey, I just got my Change Healthcare breach letter notice.
Me
So yeah,
too. And Ticketmaster and
There you go. So yeah, there's a lot of ripple effects, I think, that CISOs these days are dealing, especially in healthcare, and those are some of the things that we're hearing that are, big concern. What's the next one? The hidden one, the silent one that I haven't addressed yet.
mm, the unknown. That's always the scariest thing. What you don't know,
Correct.
you don't know. That's the that's the corner you got to figure out how to know. All right, gentlemen. Well, great conversation. Really, really loved it. There's a lot there. Now we get to knowing you, right? So remember I said at the top of the show we were going to give you 4 or 5 different categories to choose from. You get to choose a category, and then I'm gonna hit you with a question. They're all safe questions. There's no bad answers, right? You're not gonna your wife's not gonna listen to this, and all of a sudden you're gonna be doing yard work for the next 5 weeks or sleeping on the couch. So it's a safe space. But so let's see. Who wants to go first? I'll let you self-nominate.
I'll go.
All right, Nico. There you go. That's the sales guy stepping up to the plate, right? Far more than a sales guy, just easy zing for you. All right, so the categories are pop culture and entertainment,
Mhm.
travel and adventure, fun
Mhm.
and hypothetical, food and preferences. Remember, I kind of skewed you that way earlier.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I'll go with food. That's my jam.
All right, so let's see. Ooh. Okay. Ultimate meal. What would be your last meal, dessert included?
Um, it will definitely be at Osteria Franciscana from Massimo Bottura in Italy, and it would totally be so. That's
Yeah, please. For
uh,
us, for those of us who don't
come on,
speak
number
Nico.
one restaurant in the
Seriously,
world for a
come
couple
on,
for a couple
dude.
of years going.
Nobody, we don't know where that's at.
Somewhere in Italy. Let's put it
Sure,
that way.
okay, yeah,
But you got to trust me on this one.
all
And
right.
It will be a pasta cacio pepe for
Yeah,
lunch
sounds great.
with a good vintage Barolo wine,
Ooh,
and I would have a lemon sorbet tart for dessert.
nice finisher.
Maybe
There you
some
go.
Lipitor at the end of
That's
that.
the
Maybe hard
stuff with
doctor.
espresso in the end.
Okay.
Hey now, come on. You're not Italian.
I am actually.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Hey,
You're a melting
the
pot.
passport said so. So
Oh, well, hey, I got a guy down the street who can make one of those for me. All right, Chris. Categories to you: pop culture and entertainment, travel and adventure, fun and hypothetical, food and preferences, or oh, I missed this one for you, Nico. Sorry, random and just for fun. I
hmm.
have my guess, and I want to see what you answer.
Is it Nico's turn now? Did you just go
No,
back?
No,
no,
that's you.
back
That's
it.
you.
That's
Oh,
you,
okay.
Chris. I'll say you could dial
Let's
nine
go
if you'd like
adventure,
me to
man.
repeat the
Let's go
menu.
adventure. None of this
Adventure?
sitting there eating food. Let's just go have a good adventure.
Chris
What
is
we
feeling
got?
wild.
I stuck my landing. That was my guess, given all the adventure things I hear from you. So, um, okay, this is a good one. Unexpected adventures. What's the most unexpected or memorable thing that happened on a trip?
Oh, this was a fun one. I was scuba diving in Costa Rica and came upon six different bull sharks sleeping on the ocean floor, and I got about 3 feet away
Thanks.
from them. It was the coolest thing ever.
You don't mess with a bull shark, man.
Well, they were sleeping, so it was fine. They kind of looked up and were slightly annoyed and then just swam away. But yeah, it was kind of fun.
Most deadly shark on the planet. They swim in fresh water.
That's why it was a fun adventure.
Yeah. I bet. I've had a couple encounters with sharks in the wild, and yeah, no, that gives me the willies. So that sounds like that was a fun one. I don't know. In Costa Rica, were you on the Pacific or
Yeah,
not
Pacific side. Yeah.
Pacific?
Yeah.
Okay, I've spent a lot of time down in Costa Rica, so we'll have to catch up on the time spent where and all that kind of stuff another time. But people don't want to listen to that. So we'll do that in private time. So Chris, Nico, thank you guys both for joining. It was a great conversation. Loved hearing about health and all the buzz there, as well as what's going on in the compliance and cybersecurity world and cloud for healthcare. Seems like this thing evolves faster than a rotting apple. Bad metaphor, but it's fast. It moves fast. So we always got to make sure we stay ahead. And love hearing about. As always, I said at the beginning, Nico. Now I'm hungry. I got to go get me some good food. But and Chris, you make me want to go jump out of an airplane again. So I think I'm gonna have to go figure some of that stuff out. But for everyone else, thank you again for joining us. We have some exciting new developments coming in future episodes of Cracking the Code, where we're going to dive in to what we call our safeguard factory. So that's all I'm going to tell you right now. If you want to know more, you got to come back. But it's going to be some really interesting things we look into around the security and compliance of the cloud and helping you understand the criticalities of ensuring that you're fully secure and compliant. So come back, find more about that. We got many more great conversations to come. And thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day.